continue our discussion with the senior officials attached to the NGC and also NGC CNG as we continue to look at the position of CNG in the mid-year review. Ms. Brooks, should we demonopolize the market space? NP is one of the major providers. Is it time that we start making everything competitive?
You have NP in the marketplace and you also have Unipet in the marketplace. I think that the new board of NP is going to take a look at its operations and see how do we become more efficient and more effective. We, from an NGC standpoint, are clearly going to partner with National Petroleum in the rollout of its stations and the layout of its stations. When you take a look at a North American station, the footprint has changed dramatically. There is also an opportunity for public-private partnerships in that space as well, with our liquid fuels project, so that there are several opportunities. One is the public-private partnerships. Two is the ability and scope for NP to become...
Would you recommend that that the government breaks the monopoly of NP?
At this stage, Hema, I would say no, but but there is an opportunity for us to be more efficient in that space.
Ms. Mohammed, you spoke about the rebates, and to the average working person, they're going to say, I don't know if I have the money up front to put $12,000 to $16,000 for a conversion kit, and the rebate of $2,000 may not be enough. Should we relook or review that equation?
We decided to take a different approach. The chairman mentioned about public-private partnerships. We've already approached the major finance houses. Why? It's very simple. The one thing people say, I can't afford to convert. Well, all right, we have a particular economic situation before us. People give loans all the time. We've met with the majors. They are willing to offer people loans for conversions. Now, bear in mind, a typical driver who's doing like north-south every day, or maybe Sangre Grande to Port of Spain, they might spend like about $14,000, $15,000 a year on fuel. No, right now, switching to CNG accords them the opportunity. I stand corrected, it's more than $14,000 or $15,000. They can spend about $30,000, $20,000, $30,000 on fuel a year. You switch to CNG, you basically save the exact amount you need for a conversion kit in just 1 year. That's something that they don't understand. Most people don't connect with.
Right.
So there are tremendous opportunities with the credit unions, with the banks, the retail bankers actually, for getting loans. And we've engaged them. They are willing.
Now, you know, Ms. Brooks, you made the statements about the aggressive drive, and before I went to the break, you smiled when I said 30 stations. You must understand the hesitation of the public to buy into this at this time, because they've been waiting to see this national rollout for quite a while now. What commitment can you give them that this is actually going to happen?
The commitment I give them, Hema, is the same commitment I would have given in my role in the private sector. We have identified, one, the locations of the stations. Two, we have ordered the equipment, some of which have long lead items. Thirdly, we have an oversight program both at board and at company level to ensure that we roll them out consistent with our schedule in 2 areas, one on time and two on budget. And we're working very closely with other stakeholders like NP to ensure that their participation and their support in this process ensures that it happens.
Now, I asked you about the PTSC bus fleet, and you spoke about 10%. Currently, how many government vehicles actually use CNG?
We have less than 5% of government vehicles using CNG, but it is an opportunity. And that's reasonable, Hema, bearing in mind the genesis of the CNG exercise. The establishment of the working committee in 2013, the commencement of the company in 2014, the ordering of equipment in 2015, and the commencement of that rollout program. The other thing that we're doing is that we're taking a look at models with the auto dealers to ensure that we have a range of models, which is an area which we have to grow. So there are two ways that we're attacking it from. One in terms of new vehicle models, and two in terms of conversions. It is our plan to expand the number of converters in the marketplace over time so that there are more conversion facilities as we expand the suite of new offerings.
Now, Ms. Mohammed, a lot of people, and there's some general concerns our members of the public will have, the efficiency of the fuel. How often will I have to refill my fuel? The quality that I'm getting, are you going to ensure that all of these stations know what they are doing? Do you have the staff to go out and say, I'm going to inspect, I'm going to go to ANSA, I'm going to go to Massey, I'm also going to go to these service stations and make sure that what they're doing is right?
Hima, we've done exactly what you said there. With respect to the standards, we took a year with the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. We've developed a national standard. It's a refinement over the previous one. It fits today's technologies. It fits today's expectations. That is expected to be going out for public comment in May.
And you think the Bureau of Standards is capable and competent to do this task?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. They invited us to chair the committee. We did. We had all the stakeholders involved. This would be the automotive dealers, we had the Unipets and the NPs, we had the rest of the community that's involved in it, OSH agency and so on, Ministry of Energy, and that will take care of a lot of the requirements that are expected with respect to inspections or the standard of equipment we have to use. You mentioned as well that the amount of stations that we have, you had mentioned that before. The equipment has started arriving. We've ordered 24 sets of equipment in one order that will be coming over the next 18 months in batches of 4 to maybe 6 every quarter. They are going to go into every single station that we've decided upon already with NP and Unipet. We are working. NP and Unipet, they need to make the accommodations first to install our equipment. Gas lines have been running. Every now and then you look in the newspaper, you will see a notice from the NGC that gas line is being run, gas line being commissioned, gas line is being authorized. These have been happening quietly, right? Not too obtrusively since late in 2015, and they're happening a lot more regularly now. So the stations come on, we put them on, we check them, we're using state-of-the-art equipment. The kind of compressor we're using now are actually oil-free compressors for the highest quality gas for the public.
And the major importers of vehicles, they are actually purchasing models to ensure that we're not just talking about the service, but the vehicles will be available as well if people choose to buy a new vehicle?
Well, let's do it like this. I think one of the fastest selling vehicles in Trinidad and Tobago right now is the Honda City CNG.
Really?
It is.
And it is a process. In the same way that in the early 90s, you did not have a range of diesel vehicles. They were basically passenger vehicles and trucks, and they began to expand in the late 1999-2000 period. It is the same kind of approach you will see on the CNG side. So we're working closely with auto dealers to say to them, here is an opportunity. The market is going to switch. Look at right-hand drive models of CNG as we are looking at conversion stations.
Ms. Brooks, I also want to ask you a little off the CNG topic,
Sure.
the online tax. Consumers believe that you're taking away their choice or that you're making it more difficult for a free market to operate, and that the fact that the government's decision to tax the online services, which is a form of competition to local manufacturers, and competition breeds efficiency, but somehow it never really happens that way here, and that now you're simply making it back, you're making it a lot easier for the businessman to tax me out.
My thoughts. So, Hemo, my thoughts on the online tax is you have to locate online tax in the problem, and the problem is a foreign exchange problem. Right now, we have about 9.6 months of cover, down from about 12 or 13 months of cover, and there's a supply-demand imbalance in terms of our foreign exchange. The previous run rate was about $610 million per month. It's now down to about $540 million per month. With production, gas production low, oil production lowered, and with pricing low, you're going to continue to have that supply-demand imbalance. Enter the 6 or 7% tax. You've done a couple of things. One is that you've taxed luxury vehicles, which attempts to reduce the foreign exchange utilization.
Right, 50% up, right?
But you've got to rebalance the supply-demand equation. And the 7% tax, yes, there's a complaint, and I think the minister said, I have to take a look at how I shall structure the tax.
How do you think it's going to be? Are you going to work through the financial sector? How is it going to be determined?
I think that you will have to work through the financial sector, because that tax literally will come from your Visa card payments.
Right.
So that would be the most convenient way to do it. The threshold that you use and how you apply it, I think, is going to be important. Now, having said that, there clearly is a margin differential between local retailers whom you're trying to support and people who are purchasing it overseas. And so that I think local retailers are going to have to take a look at the margin, as well as how we construct the tax to avoid the foreign exchange leakage. Now, the minister has also done some very important things from a foreign exchange standpoint. He has said in the case of local manufacturers, where we are trying to get foreign exchange diverted to raw material purchases, which will improve their credit lines, he is saying, I will allow you to pay back in Trinidad and Tobago dollars.
The Exim Bank equation.
The Exim Bank.
Do you think that that is a practical solution at this time?
I think it's a useful solution, because having operated in business where I either have my credit lines squeezed, I no longer, or my cost of credit increased, it affects my margin from a business standpoint. So I think it's an important facility, and I think it's up to Exim Bank to work with local manufacturers to try to get it to work. The other important thing that he said is, I am going to defend the currency at 680. And what that does is that it avoids speculation and certainly will reduce the arbitrage opportunities.
Now we have what we consider a dirty float or a managed float. Is it that our currency is overvalued? There have been changes in the yen, there have been changes in the Canadian dollar. We're seeing the changes on the international
market. And those changes are both up and down.
Right.
The yen has moved up and down. The important question inside of this two things. One, how do we drive productivity and take costs out of our business? And how do we drive competitiveness? And certainly I think from a manufacturing standpoint, that move to provide the wherewithal, the lifeblood, the software to manufacturers in terms of raw materials, space, and that ability to purchase it certainly helps.
Ms. Howard, as it relates to the contractual agreements of NGC, it is no secret that our gas supplies are, what many can say, down, under attack. How are you going to fulfill? I know contracts are coming up for negotiations. People are worried that when we're in the losing end, that we give away too much, or that we are on the losing end of the bargaining spectrum. How are the negotiations going? How many contracts are up for negotiations?
That will be Mr. Brooks.
Thank you very much, Emo. We are in the midst of upstream negotiations and downstream negotiations. And actually one of the meetings when I leave here that I go to is to take a look at our downstream negotiations. This is a volatile period, and I was explaining to you that it's a very complex period because we're in a period of prolonged depressed prices. So for example, in ammonia and in methanol, prices are at a reasonable low, trading less than 300. So we have constructed our contract administration teams, our legal teams, and our commercial teams are working closely to take a look at what do we see as future pricing. This is between the 2016 to 2030 period. What will pricing look like? How do we construct our pricing model? How do we construct commercial terms? And one of the things that we're going to be doing is instead of having 3 or 4 very different contracts, we're going to move to have a harmonized contract in downstream and a harmonized contract from an upstream standpoint.
Are you able to fulfill your contractual obligations now?
We are not able to fulfill all of our contractual obligations now, and that's partly because we have a gas curtailment problem. And there are several things that we're doing from a gas curtailment standpoint. Some of the things are, one, we are working closely with one upstreamer and what is called a Trinidad Regional Onshore Project, the truck project, which is going to help to alleviate this shortage in terms of gas. The second thing that we're doing is that we're taking a look at the propane to downstream project to take a look at an alternative feedstock to gas to run your turbines and so forth. The third area that we're working very closely on from a national energy perspective is on the Juniper project to ensure that our Bird 2 and all of the infrastructure is ready to deliver Juniper in 2017-2018, which will deliver 585 million scuffs of gas. That's an extremely important project in the 2017 to 2018 period. The government, NGC, and the state is also very focused on Laura and Manatee, which is going to be the 2019 to 2020 period. That can deliver 10 trillion TCF of gas. And we're working from a commercial standpoint, from a unitization standpoint, and from a state perspective to ensure that we're able to have access to that gas, close to infrastructure to help us. Now, the minister also made...
But you're not going to get access to that very soon.
That's 2019-2020.
Right.
What we are going to get access to is the smaller marginal fields, which the minister has spoken to in his budget.
Right.
And those there are 52 smaller marginal fields which can generate about 100 BCF, 150 BCF of gas. And interestingly, the minister has provided some of the infrastructure on that from a budgetary standpoint. We are also working very closely with owners of acreage and small independent operators, I don't want to call their names on television, so that you have a coincidence of interest. The independent operator who is able to access that quote-unquote stranded gas, which is close to infrastructure, and the owner of the acreage and ourselves to form a triumvirate or a triangle, which allows us to access that gas a lot earlier and then to bring it to book to help us to alleviate the curtailment problem. So just to summarize, it's the Trinidad Onshore Compression Project,
right.
It's the Juniper, which will deliver 585, it's the propane to downstream, which can deliver about 200, it is the smaller marginal fields, and that collaborative effort, along with Juniper and along with Laura Manatee, allows us to be able to resolve this difficulty in the short term. Short to medium term, sorry.
Of ArcelorMittal out of our national landscape, how, in terms of our revenue stream and in terms of the space at the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, how big of a hit will we take as a country?
ArcelorMittal tells us a couple of things. One is that organizations, in looking at their portfolio of businesses, will move plant. Other organizations have told us that, and that goes back here to the very first point that we discussed, which is jurisdictional competitiveness. The other thing with ArcelorMittal is that there was a level of subsidy both from a gas and from an electricity standpoint as it relates to ArcelorMittal. And from a policy perspective, it allows us to realign that gas and that electricity to areas of activity which could be more profitable.